In the world of geopolitics, few figures have loomed as large and controversially as Vladimir Putin. A man of mystery and calculated moves, his journey from a humble upbringing in Soviet-era Leningrad to becoming one of the most powerful leaders in the modern world is as fascinating as it is complex. Born on October 7, 1952, in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin entered a world still recovering from the scars of World War II. The city bore deep wounds from the Nazi siege, and its residents, including Putin's family, lived modestly. His father, Vladimir Spiridonovich Putin, served in the Soviet Navy and later worked in a factory, while his mother, Maria Ivanovna Shelemova, was a homemaker. Young Vladimir grew up in a communal apartment shared with multiple families, a common setup in the Soviet Union. From an early age, he demonstrated resilience and determination, often standing his ground in the face of challenges. Putin's academic journey began at school No. 193, where he was an average student but excelled in judo, a sport that would later symbolize his disciplined and strategic approach to life and politics. Putin's passion for judo wasn't merely about physical prowess. He saw it as a philosophy, a way to outmaneuver opponents through leverage and mental agility. His dedication earned him recognition in the sport and instilled a sense of confidence that shaped his personality. This blend of mental discipline and physical skill became a defining trait in his life. After finishing school, Putin attended Leningrad State University, now St. Petersburg State University, enrolling in the law faculty in 1970. During his university years, he became deeply interested in intelligence work, an ambition inspired by Soviet patriotic films that glorified the exploits of spies. At university, Putin was mentored by Anatoly Sobchak, a prominent law professor who later became a key political figure and one of Putin's significant allies. While Putin's academic performance was steady, it was his reserved demeanor and strategic thinking that set him apart. He graduated in 1975, and shortly thereafter, his aspiration to serve in the intelligence community became a reality. Putin joined the KGB, the Soviet Union's main security agency, marking the start of a career that would prepare him for the highest echelons of power. Putin's first significant assignment in the KGB was in the Foreign Intelligence Division, where he worked in counterintelligence and surveillance. After extensive training, he was stationed in Dresden, East Germany, in the 1980s. During this time, he honed his skills in information gathering and analysis while maintaining a low profile. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 was a turning point, not only for Europe, but also for Putin personally. As East Germany collapsed and the Soviet Union's grip weakened, Putin witnessed firsthand the chaos of a disintegrating communist bloc. His return to Leningrad in 1990 coincided with the Soviet Union's unraveling, an event that deeply influenced his views on stability and power. Upon returning to Leningrad, Putin began a new chapter of his career under the mentorship of Anatoly Sobchak, now the mayor of Leningrad. Sobchak appointed Putin as an advisor and later as the head of the city's Committee for External Relations. This position involved fostering foreign investments and building relationships with international businesses, which allowed Putin to refine his political acumen. Putin's efficiency, strategic thinking, and loyalty caught the attention of influential figures in Moscow. His ability to navigate the complexities of post-Soviet Russia and his knack for staying out of political scandals made him an appealing candidate for higher roles. By the mid-1990s, as Sobchak lost political favor, Putin transitioned to Moscow, where he entered the orbit of President Boris Yeltsin's administration. Moscow years: the road to the presidency. Putin joined the presidential staff in 1996, initially working in administrative roles. He was soon promoted to head the Federal Security Service, FSB, the successor to the KGB, in 1998. In this capacity, Putin brought his intelligence expertise to bear on stabilizing internal security. His appointment as prime minister in 1999 marked the beginning of his meteoric rise. Yeltsin, facing declining health and political pressure, identified Putin as a reliable successor. On December 31, 1999, Yeltsin unexpectedly announced his resignation, naming Putin as acting president. In March 2000, Vladimir Putin was elected as president of Russia, winning a majority vote. His initial years in office were marked by efforts to restore stability to a nation reeling from economic crises, separatist movements, and political unrest. Putin swiftly moved to centralize power and reinforce federal authority. His administration tackled the war in Chechnya with a hardline approach, justifying military actions as necessary to combat terrorism. Though controversial, these actions resonated with a populace yearning for order. Economically, Putin implemented reforms to attract foreign investment, stabilize the ruble, and reduce the influence of oligarchs who had dominated the post-Soviet era. The state reclaimed control over key industries, particularly energy, symbolized by the high-profile dismantling of Yukos, an oil company owned by Mikhail Khodorkovsky. Under Putin, Russia experienced economic growth, fueled largely by rising oil prices and his administration's fiscal policies. Infrastructure improved, wages increased, and poverty rates declined. However, critics pointed to rising authoritarianism, suppression of political opposition, and media censorship as troubling signs of Putin's governance style. Putin's re-election in 2004 marked the beginning of significant political restructuring. Regional governors were no longer elected but appointed by the president, effectively consolidating the Kremlin's control. While these moves were justified as measures to prevent separatism and ensure stability, they drew criticism from domestic and international observers. In 2008, constitutionally barred from serving a third consecutive term as president, Vladimir Putin transitioned to the role of prime minister. Dmitry Medvedev, a close ally, assumed the presidency. Despite the official title change, Putin was widely perceived as the dominant figure in Russian politics, guiding decisions from behind the scenes in what many termed a tandemocracy. During this period, Russia faced the global financial crisis of 2008-2009, which significantly impacted its economy. As prime minister, Putin introduced stimulus measures to stabilize banks, protect jobs, and support key industries. His emphasis on state intervention and economic nationalism helped mitigate the crisis's effects, though critics argued it reinforced oligarchic structures. Putin continued to shape Russia's assertive foreign policy. The 2008 Russo-Georgian War marked a critical moment as Russian forces intervened in South Ossetia and Abkhazia following Georgia's attempt to reclaim the regions. The conflict sent a clear message about Russia's willingness to assert influence in its neighborhood, even at the cost of international criticism. In 2012, Vladimir Putin returned to the presidency amid widespread protests against alleged electoral fraud. The mass demonstrations, unprecedented in post-Soviet Russia, were met with a combination of state suppression and dismissive rhetoric. Putin's administration framed the protests as foreign-influenced attempts to destabilize Russia. One of the most defining moments of Putin's third term came in 2014 with Russia's annexation of Crimea. Following Ukraine's Maidan Revolution and the ousting of its pro-Russian president, Putin justified the annexation as protecting Russian-speaking citizens and historical claims. The move drew international condemnation and sanctions, but bolstered Putin's popularity domestically, where it was celebrated as a restoration of Russian pride. Sanctions and declining oil prices tested Russia's economy. Putin's government responded by emphasizing self-sufficiency, developing domestic industries, and strengthening ties with non-Western nations like China and India. Though the measures mitigated some effects, economic growth slowed, and living standards for many Russians declined. In 2018, Vladimir Putin secured a fourth term as president, marking another chapter in his enduring leadership. While his popularity remained robust among many Russians, this period saw growing challenges including economic stagnation, increased dissent, and an evolving international landscape. During his fourth term, Putin introduced significant constitutional reforms, which were approved in a 2020 referendum. The changes reset his presidential term limits, potentially allowing him to stay in power until 2036. Critics labeled this a move toward authoritarianism, while supporters viewed it as necessary for Russia's stability. On the social front, Putin emphasized traditional Russian values, positioning himself as a defender against what he portrayed as Western cultural encroachment. Policies promoting family, religion, and patriotism played a prominent role in his rhetoric. The Kremlin faced mounting criticism from opposition figures and civil society. Alexei Navalny emerged as a vocal critic, exposing alleged corruption within Putin's administration. Navalny's poisoning in 2020 and subsequent imprisonment drew widespread international condemnation and highlighted the risks faced by opposition figures in Russia. Putin continued to project Russia as a key player on the global stage. The military intervention in Syria solidified Russia's influence in the Middle East, while deepening ties with China offered economic and strategic benefits. Relations with the West remained tense, marked by accusations of election interference, cyber attacks, and espionage. The conflict in Ukraine escalated dramatically in 2022 as Russia launched a full-scale invasion. The move led to severe economic sanctions, a unified Western response, and a global reappraisal of security policies. Domestically, the war was framed as a necessary action to protect Russian interests and counter NATO expansion, though it faced criticism for its human and economic toll. Russia faced significant economic hurdles due to sanctions and international isolation. The government emphasized resilience through import substitution, domestic production, and expanding trade with countries outside the Western Bloc. Despite these efforts, ordinary Russians experienced economic hardship, fueling discontent in some quarters. Putin's tenure has redefined Russia's political, economic, and social landscape. His leadership style, marked by centralization of power, assertive foreign policy, and emphasis on Russian identity, continues to polarize opinions both within Russia and globally. As Russia moves forward, questions loom about Putin's long-term plans, the resilience of his governance model, and the nation's role in a rapidly changing world. Whether he steps aside in 2036 or continues to adapt his strategies, Putin's impact on Russia's history is undeniable and far-reaching. That's the history of Vladimir Putin.